I believe the church really has it right when they made the shift and started having us focus on having the youth and the young adults do more and be more in charge, and the leaders are there more kind of like shadow leaders in the background supporting rather than doing everything for them. That's the right direction. And so if anybody hasn't gotten on that bandwagon yet, they need to.
Yeah.
Right? Get them involved. Doesn't mean you don't do anything, right? It doesn't mean you just watch and let them crash and burn if they're going to crash and burn. I mean, you could still offer guidance, you could still help them and support them, but letting them do as much as possible is great. But then you have this aspect of, okay, if I'm helping them become a leader, I need to be a leader as well. I need to have leadership skills so I know how to coach them or how to help them. Because if you don't know if they're doing a good job or not, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to let them do whatever they're going to do, and they might crash and burn.
Yeah.
And if they crash and burn, that does nothing to help their self-confidence. It does nothing to help them learn how to do it better unless they have somebody there that could say, hey, well, what if you do this? Or could you do that?
Because sometimes they might feel stuck, right?
Yes. And so that's why I love what you're doing, because you're really encouraging people who are in these leadership roles to work on sharpening that saw.
Yeah.
Right? Become better leaders so that you then could pass that on in a better way. And I think that most of the problems in the world are leadership problems.
Hey, I'm excited to welcome into this episode Patrick Sedivy, who I've had the pleasure of becoming friends with and learning from, and he's a kindred spirit. He's created something that really is having an impact on the leadership world of Latter-day Saints, and that is Cumorah Academy. He'll get into the details of what this is, how it works, but it's an academy for young single adults that really helps with transition points in their life, either leaving high school or transitioning to university or coming up from a mission. And his approach of teaching soft skills or critical skills, as he frames it, of how to survive in the world as an adult, getting a job, how to do an interview, how to think about leadership in new ways and be that leader and step into these callings that we're all given, not just in church but in life, and accountability and really these skills that have a huge impact. And these success stories that Patrick shares are so inspiring, and there's so many parallels that we can translate to the leadership world, whether we're a young men's advisor, young women's presidency, bishop, or young single adult, helping in that world as well. There's so much to learn here, and Cumorah Academy may be something, a tool, a resource to refer people to who could really benefit from it. So you're going to really appreciate this episode, and maybe it'll inspire you to join us, leading saints, with partnering with Cumorah Academy. So here's my interview with Patrick Sedivy. Welcome back to another episode of the Leading Saints podcast. Today, I'm welcoming in a good friend, Patrick Sedivy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be here, Kurt.
This is a long time coming.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for over a year now.
For sure. And you were kind enough, if I remember right now, I'm going to forget his name, the Ukrainian stake president that I interviewed a couple of years ago. I think you are a connection to him.
Yes.
What was
Pavel.
His name? Yes.
Pavel Mikhailovsky.
That's right. And 28-year-old stake president, at least at the time.
Super young.
In a war-torn country, just figuring it out. He had some great stories.
And he made just like a really tough decision to stay in the country when he had an opportunity actually to leave on humanitarian grounds. But he chose to stay to take care of the members of the stake there.
Yeah. I'm sure more stories will come out of that, and it'll be fun to reconnect with him. Now, it's when people ask you what you do, how do you explain that?
That's a really good question. So, I started a nonprofit school called Cumorah Academy, where we teach primarily leadership and other soft skills, which I really think should be called crucial skills, not soft skills, to young adults. So our students are all 18 and up, and we help prepare them for life, for their professions, and to be leaders in their homes, churches, and communities.
That's awesome. And primarily, it's a Latter-day Saint focused Cumorah Academy type thing, or is it?
So that is our primary aim, to help young Latter-day Saints. But about 20 to 30% of our students are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Nice. But is it sort of like if a non-member attended BYU, they still get religious or Latter-day Saint type of content? Or
Yes. So part of our core curriculum is an institute class. So everybody takes institute whether or not they are members of the church or not.
Nice. And so where did this idea come from? What's the story behind it?
That's that goes back over 20 years now.
Wow.
So my wife and I happened to be living in the Czech Republic with our young family at that time, and our kids, we just threw them into Czech schools. And so we started to build some relationships with local Czechs and Czech, teachers and principals and so forth. And one day my wife and I were at home. We were both in different rooms in different parts of the house. And we both had the same impression at the same time. We both just felt we need to start a school here in the Czech Republic. And so we came and we found each other in the house and we just started talking, and we were just kind of all on the same page and filling in each other's sentences saying, yeah, we need to start a school. Yeah, it's for young adults. And yeah, it's going to be all in English. And, we're going to bring these young adults together to live on campus. So all of those things were all kind of just all at once like that.
Wow. And so this isn't like a traditional, like accredited, like school per se that they're going to get college credit, but it's more of like, these those crucial skills that maybe you don't get when you're going through generals or whatever in the college. Is that a fair way to frame it?
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because what we've noticed is that universities prepare people for specific professions. They give a lot of technical skills. Very rarely do they provide the soft skills, as we call them, or leadership skills that somebody needs in all professions, right? So, I mean, if somebody were to study leadership in school or something like that, they'd get plenty. But most of us don't do that, right? We study engineering, we study law, we study medicine, we study whatever, art or teaching or whatever. So, nobody really gets those key leadership principles that are so critical, not just for your profession. I mean, every profession needs it, and more and more. I mean, I was just reading an article on Forbes today about how leadership and communication are the skills of the future, not the technical skills, because AI will do more and more of the technical stuff,
true,
right?
Yeah.
So more and more of these things are needed in the profession, but not only there. You need those skills in your home, in your family. You need those skills in church. I mean, we're talking about young Latter-day Saint individuals. They're going to be eventually called into elders quorum presidencies, Relief Society presidencies, primary presidencies, and so forth, and bishopric, stake presidencies. They need to be equipped with leadership skills to be able to be effective in what they're doing there.
Yeah. And this is a great resource to do that. So maybe just give us like, how does it function? Like what, and who are you looking for, and what do they do, and how does it work?
Okay. So, I mean, when we're looking for students, we're looking for one key component. We're not looking for their grades. We're not looking for what field of study they're looking into. We're looking for individuals who are really committed to change their life for the better. Because if they are, then they're teachable, and we can work with that. And it really becomes a life-transforming experience. The other way we're different from other schools is it's fully residential. So it's not like they just come to school in the morning at 8 or 9 in the morning and then they leave at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. They actually live on campus, and the campus is fairly secluded. It's in the countryside. So there's no major distractions.
Like a Hogwarts type of thing.
Kind of, right? Except not quite as fancy, and you don't have like paintings that are moving on the wall.
Yeah, right.
But they live together. And so we're able to create an environment where they learn not only in the classroom, although we do that, and that's important, obviously, but then outside of the classroom, we give them projects that they need to work on. For example, they're divided into teams and groups, and they work as a team to create a service project in the community, an outreach project, or they'll work as a team to create extracurricular activities like dance night or talent night or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're always working on these types of projects, which makes it so that they're implementing what they learn in the classroom right away. They rotate through leadership roles and leadership positions in their teams, and that gives them that opportunity.
Yeah. And now it's like how long is a student there, and
Yeah, it's only 3 months.
3 months. So a lot are doing this maybe between semesters as they're going to traditional university or things like that.
So we have different types of people, not different types of people necessarily, but people at different stages of their growth and development. So you've got people who are just straight out of high school before they go to university or before they go on a mission. You have people that are coming back from missions before they go to university or before they start their job or career. You have people that just graduated from university and they want to get this opportunity in addition to what they did in university for their technical skills before they launch their career. So all of those transition points are great opportunities for them to come to Cumorah Academy because it's just 3 months.
Yeah, that's awesome. And and these are students from all over the world. It's not just the United States. It's not just in Europe. It's all over the world.
Yeah, the really interesting thing is we started when my wife and I had this vision of starting Cumorah Academy, our blinders were on. It was like, we were just thinking this is for Czechs because we love the Czechs so much. We both served our missions here. We've lived here, all that kind of stuff. Well, as we were getting started and as we started doing a pilot program put together, we realized this isn't just for Czechs. This is for all of Europe. And then as we really got rolling, we quickly realized this isn't just for Europe. This is for everybody in the world. And very soon after that, we started having students come to us from Brazil, Peru, all places all over Latin America, Central America. We started having students from the US, and we're having more and more students from the US right now. And it's really cool because now you have this real cultural mix. You know, every semester we have roughly 20 countries represented on campus. So they get this international experience where they're mingling with people of different languages, different cultures, and they learn to understand each other, even though there are real differences in all of those cultures.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so they pay some level of tuition to come for those 3 months, and they cover their travel to get there and to have that experience.
Yeah, that's right. So all of them pay for their travel to get there. We do offer scholarships for the students, and the scholarships are primarily based on need, as well as other factors, you know, during their application process, as well as the availability of scholarships and so forth. But, you know, so if you're coming from a place like Nicaragua, where, you know, income levels are super low, there will be larger scholarship opportunities available to you than if you're coming from the US. Although we do still offer scholarships to students from the US.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And classes are taught in English, or?
Everything's done in English.
Okay.
Which is really cool because for students who have English as their second or third or fourth language, they learn English super fast because they're immersed. Not just all day at school, but all day and all night through all their activities. Everything's done in English. So typically our students who are learning English, they advance by a whole year's worth of study in the space of 3 months.
Wow. That's powerful. I just love this stuff. Obviously, this is why I hope Leading Saints will be a longtime partner with Cumorah Academy. Just, I love the approach and what you do and the leadership skills that you facilitate there. Maybe give us, what stories come to mind that would really inspire us?
Okay, so there's a guy named, I love Pedro. Pedro's one of our students from Brazil. He actually was planning to go to Ensign College and move to the US, hopefully get married, right? So that was kind of his vision. But for many Brazilians, it's hard to get a visa to enter the US. So he wasn't able to get a visa. Things weren't working out for him. Plus tuition and living costs in the US is quite expensive, right? So one day he heard about Cumorah Academy, and so he applied. He came to Cumorah Academy, and very quickly his whole vision shifted. One of the things we do and focus on at Cumorah Academy is helping our students create a life vision for themselves. And so as he went through this process, he realized, I don't want to move and live in the US. I want to stay in Brazil, and I want to help build up the community in Brazil.
Sure.
By being a leader there, really, right? So he decided, I'm going to stay in Brazil. He continued his studies through Ensign College online, but he decided to stay there. He's now married. Within 2 months of coming home from Cumorah Academy, he was called into the bishopric.
Wow.
He doubled his salary when he finished Cumorah Academy because he had new acquired skills, improved English, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
That's cool. And
life transformation, right? Because it gives a lot of opportunities, a lot of education.
Yeah, that's really cool. Any other story? Maybe give us one more.
Yeah, another one is a guy named Eduardo. So we actually hired Eduardo. He's currently a recruiter for us.
Cool.
He does a fantastic job at finding top talent and placing them with companies in the U.S. And so Eduardo was also one of our students, and he's now also getting married. He's working for us. He's doing a great job. Again, probably about making 2 or 3 times. Probably not 3 times. A little over 2 times what he was making before. Yeah. I just love to see those kinds of things because they're just so solid.
Yeah.
Right. They just, they want to help their communities. They want to have families. And oftentimes in these underdeveloped countries, if you can call them that, they don't have those opportunities.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they would be forced to work for a really low wage. They'd be forced to work weekends, Sundays, making it hard to go to church or, really serve effectively in callings. And so we love to just see them thrive.
That's cool. That's cool.
And there's lots of stories of,
oh, I'm sure.
I mean, on average, our students increase their income by around 80% when they leave Cumorah Academy.
That's fascinating. And which is, really is a disruptive model because in our minds we think, well, I want a good job. I want to increase my income. And so I need to go to university, which obviously a lot of these individuals are or in the process of doing that. But in our minds we think in order to double that income or get a better life, it's a 2, 3, 4 year journey. But to just have this experience, it's more micro, but it just gives you an additional edge that really makes a huge difference, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dock universities. I'm not going to say they're not, that you shouldn't go to university. There's tons of value there. I mean, education is really important. Rather, we're trying to shift the mindset of people because oftentimes people look at life in discrete stages, right? I'm in elementary school, I'm in high school, I'm in a university, now I'm working, and then all of their education just kind of falls away. They don't think about continuous learning. But we're shifting that mindset to be not only lifelong learners, but lifelong skill seekers. Always be seeking ways to acquire new skills to create value for others. And if if you've mastered that, AI comes, disrupts everything, right? Disrupts your profession. Well, you'll know how to shift and pivot so that you can still provide value and still make a living. I'm confident of that.
Yeah. And I think there's a benefit in some of these transitional points in a young adult's life where whether it's from high school to college or coming from the mission to getting back to the routine of university or whatever, that these really fit in nicely to kind of help with that transition. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Often we find, I would say a majority of our students are return missionaries right now. And often they come and they feel a little bit lost. And I don't know if you might have seen this with some young adults, or from around here where they come home, they feel a little bit lost. On their missions, they're so focused. They have such a clear purpose. And then they get home. It's like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
And so they sometimes struggle with that. But when they come to Cumorah Academy, they really figure that out. What's that purpose for them? What's my vision for my life? I was asking one of our staff members, one of our interns, I said, okay, now that you've been here at Cumorah Academy for a while, how would you describe Cumorah Academy? And without any hesitation, she said, oh, that's easy. It's the MTC for life.
That's awesome.
So it really does help lay those tracks, lay out that path that our students then go on.
Yeah. And then another detail. So this is really anybody like graduated from high school and up, or till like 30, or what's the age range that?
Yeah. So we don't really have an upper limit. We have had students in their mid 30s, 35, 36 come. That's not very frequent, but we do have some of those. Most of our students are in their mid-20s,
Okay.
25, 26. So they're somewhere in that, post-mission or in their either, post-university studies or whatever.
Yeah. But definitely 18 and older, like out of
Definitely
high school.
18 and older, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So what's the framing, the curriculum or the principles that, that guide this, that you're taking them through? Like, how do you develop a leadership development experience in this model?
So we started to ask ourselves some very basic questions like, what would I wish I had learned or known when I was in my 20s or early 20s, but nobody ever taught me? And with that question, we really identified some key things, key elements. And that vision I mentioned is one of them. But even things like knowing how to find a job. I think the church has a great how to find a job curriculum, but it's not necessarily geared towards young adults in this manner who are just getting ready to enter the workforce or who are just in that early stage. And so we actually help zero in on the accountability that goes along with that, helping them really dig in and know how to find a job. So, I mean, by the end of the semester, we know that our students know how to find a job because our requirement to pass that class is you have to find a job. You have to find a job that's better than anything you ever had before.
Yeah. And this, is it how to search online or how to do an interview, or what are
all of that.
Okay.
How to create your resume, which obviously now with AI tools, that's a lot easier and easier to do. But it also makes it so that everybody's kind of more on the same playing field. If everybody's using AI to create their resumes, there's a lot less differentiation that goes on there. So you have to find different ways to differentiate yourself. So we also work on LinkedIn profiles. We work on, obviously, the skills that they learn while they're there are the biggest differentiators. Just the fact of knowing English, by the way, for some of these foreigners, knowing English creates great opportunity. In many cases, gives them the opportunity to double their income.
Wow.
Just by improving their English.
Yeah.
So those are, those skills are really, really key in making that happen. We work on networking skills. So that's one of our key leadership topics that we revisit more than once, and give them lots of opportunity to practice while they're at Cumorah Academy.
Nice. And is there, you mentioned practice, what's the methodology? Because it's easy to, cram people in a room with a projector and have the professor start lecturing. Is there a different modality that you do, or?
Yeah, we try to make it as interactive as possible. Young adults need that nowadays. I think everybody needs it, not just young adults.
Yeah.
But, you and I probably grew up in a time where lecture was probably the default mode, right? Teacher gets up, stands, teaches, lectures, or whatever. You take notes. You have a test after that or some assignments after that. Well, we do online learning. So they have curriculum that they study online before they come to class. And they're held accountable to studying that and doing that before they come to class, so that when they come to class, they're already prepared to have a discussion and have interaction with the mentor or the instructor about that material. And then during class, they answer any questions, they have discussion, they start actually working on using those principles. So for example, with our entrepreneurship program, they'll take that online curriculum, come to class, discuss it, make sure they answer any questions, and then they'll have class time to start working on that concept. So if it's developing your, your value proposition for your business, then they'd have time to work on their value proposition in class before they leave, where they could still get advice from peers that are also in class or from the instructor. And then they continue working on that. And then they hand that in before they come to the next class, right? So you have all of these elements that are coming together. I kind of have a philosophy, I call it D4T. Kind of like, okay, so chemistry would like D with a small 4, like kind of H2O kind of model.
Yeah.
Describe what it is you're trying to teach them. Demonstrate. then you have a discussion about it, then you have them do it, and then you have them teach it. So if you can follow all of those steps up to and including them teaching the principle to somebody else, that's when learning, I feel, gets much, much deeper.
Yeah. And what a great, like, simple model for those, young men advisors out there or young women advisors to, how can we do the D4T model in Sunday, as you're talking about the gospel, right?
Yeah.
There's that's really effective and engaging as they do that. So employment is one, like, just as far as everything from networking to resumes to just learning those soft skills, right, of getting a job.
Yep.
Right. Another area, or what's another?
Okay, so as part of our core leadership program, we have all of our students create this life vision. We have an accountability challenge, which lasts for a month, so it's 4 weeks long, and it really helps our students focus on being held accountable to themselves as well as to somebody else, to getting their most important tasks done. Often people just lack discipline. They lack direction sometimes even in what to do in their day. But just by focusing on this element, I know it sounds super basic and super simple, but I mean, look at New Year's resolutions. Gyms are full in the first couple weeks of January. By February, they're usually empty because people are making these New Year's resolutions and they're breaking those commitments to themselves. They're less than 10% into the year.
Yeah.
Right? The challenge with that is when you break commitments you make to yourself, it actually undermines all of your confidence because you start believing, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm never going to stick to it, I'm never, and all of a sudden you're not able to be as powerful in other aspects of your life. And so we teach them that this accountability piece is so critical. You need to first and foremost do what you say you're going to do to yourself.
Yeah.
Like keep your commitments that you make to yourself. And as part of that, we teach them, okay, identify the 4 most important things you need to do in a day and make sure you get them done. And you're not going to bed until you get them done. So
yeah. And
I know it sounds super basic, but we've had people, my wife and I have done this with other business partners or business associates, and people have paid thousands of dollars per month just to be held accountable in this manner.
Yeah, it's so true.
And it changes their lives. I mean, we've seen business owners double their businesses within a few short months just by all of a sudden refocusing and actually keeping their commitments.
Cool. So how would you frame that? That's under what principle or
accountability?
Just accountability. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And how many other umbrellas or concepts are there that
we focus on conflict resolution as well.
Okay.
Because you'll come into conflict with us specifically. You're in a place where you've got people from diverse cultures. Okay.
Yeah.
And we actually create these scenarios intentionally because we know they have the potential to create conflict, not because we want contention. Right. Because we're all taught contention is of the devil, but conflict does arise in life, and learning how to manage it or deal with it is a critically important skill. And so, for example, you'll have roommates who are from Ukraine, from Latin America. Ukrainians always want to sleep with their windows open. The Latin Americans start freezing out, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, okay, this conflict could arise. Well, then we coach them through, how do you resolve that in a kind way? Yeah. And so they walk away with some frameworks and some skills to make that happen.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so and there's like every semester, what do you call them, semesters or? Yeah,
we do call them semesters, even though it's kind of a misnomer. I mean, we have 3 terms, I guess, in a year.
Yeah, and so each group is going through the same experience, or do you have multiple different groups going on at the same time? Or?
So each group, they arrive together, they're there together the whole time, and they leave together. By the end, those students, I mean, we have only about 60 students on campus at a time. So it becomes a really tight-knit group.
Yeah.
And they're all crying and sobbing by the end. They don't want to leave each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then as they go through this, I mean, are they're hitting the same classes together? I mean, is there specific teaching going on we're going to accountability
Yes.
every day at this time? Or
Yeah, so they have the leadership program. Everybody does the same thing. So the leadership includes the leadership class. It includes institute, like we mentioned. It also includes a public speaking class. Public speaking is very underrated.
Yeah, right.
I remember talking. So I graduated in civil engineering from BYU. I've done exactly 0 days of civil engineering in my life. And a few years after I graduated and was running my business with my wife, I ran into some of my fellow students at BYU, and we were talking about what they do, and he said, "Oh, the engineering part's easy. The computers do all of that. You just kind of have to know what to input into the computer. What I really do all the time is write reports and present to stakeholders." It's like, wow. Not once did we have a class on public speaking or report writing or presenting. And that's a really important skill.
Yeah. And so when you develop like something like public speaking, do you go out and look for, established research or people who've written about it and try and create your own curriculum, or do you adopt a curriculum to do that?
So specifically for public speaking, we did base it off of a curriculum that was already pre-written, but then we infused it with some of our own elements and just kind of personalized it that way. But again, everything is approached from a very practical standpoint. I mean, you don't just teach theory of public speaking. I mean, you could watch all the YouTube videos you want online about public speaking, but until you start doing it, you're not really going to get better. So like every class, they're always presenting.
Yeah. What do you find, what are the big aha moments they have as they're exploring the concept of public speaking?
One aha moment is PowerPoint. I mean, we have a module. It's like death by PowerPoint. Often people just put a ton of text on their PowerPoint, but that's terrible presenting.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its place in very, very rare instances.
Yeah.
But what it does is all of a sudden the audience's view shifts away from the presenter onto the slide, and they're reading every word on the slide rather than listening to the presenter. Right. So we teach them to really optimize. If you're going to use PowerPoint, minimize the text, make it really impactful so that it supports what you're saying, but doesn't distract from what the presenter's doing.
Yeah. I think there's Amazon, I think, is outlawed PowerPoint. You can't use PowerPoint in any meetings at Amazon, but because a lot of these things become a crutch, right? And and especially in a faith tradition where we have so many opportunities to public speak, even in church, Yeah. And so that'd be crucial.
Another challenge with the PowerPoint is often the presenter gets distracted by their own PowerPoint.
I know, right? Yeah.
Instead of looking at the audience and making eye contact, they're looking at the slide, right? Which moves everybody to the slide.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. So is there a specific leadership like curriculum they go through, or these are all components of like a general leadership direction? Yeah,
so there is a specific leadership class, and yes, there are different modules. So you'll have the module on accountability, you'll have the module on networking or teamwork and things like that.
Yeah. So other than the D4T approach, like how would someone put together a module that's actually going to be effective on just whatever concept they're wanting to approach?
Honestly, D4T is really good. I mean,
that gives you kind of
somebody were to, if you were to put a class together on anything, right? I think if you follow D4T, it'll be a lot better than if you just get up in front of the room and talk.
Yeah. How do you balance just the workload or class time to free time to breaks to, I mean, is there a typical day or schedule they go through each day?
Yeah, they do have a schedule, and that's a really good question because we've had to make some adjustments over the course of the semesters we've done because there was a point where we were overloading the students. We were giving them too much, and they were starting to burn out. And so what we realized is sometimes less is more. And so we took away a number of elements and focused on doing them well rather than trying to put everything in.
Yeah.
And that has made a big difference.
Yeah. Was there, I mean, how were you aware of the burnout? Like, what were the signals of that happening?
Well, everything is done very, very hands-on. So there's always people that are involved, and we're always talking. We're always getting feedback, from each other in what's going on. We're very centered on the student themselves, to watch and see their progression and growth. So discussions are always about how can we help the students get better or improve faster. And so when you're having those kinds of discussions on a very regular basis, it's hard to miss.
Yeah.
You just see it. It's like somebody brings it up. It's like, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah.
What do we do about it?
Yeah. So is there a certain amount of time that you say, we don't do anything more than 90 minutes in a class time or anything like that before we take a break, or
more it's about the course load overall. Making sure, because sometimes we do have some classes that are optional, and sometimes the students themselves, they want to do everything in the world, right? So our program basically equates to about 18 or 19 credit hours at university, which is a pretty heavy load.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was at BYU, I think 17 credits was the most I've ever had.
Yeah.
So it does keep them busy, but they are there 24/7. So that does,
right.
Play into it as well.
How did it, downtime is probably, as that age group, sometimes is stigmatized with, they get bored and they get into trouble, or, they get, especially when they're in groups or whatever. Is there anything intentionally you do with the downtime to make sure their experience is positive?
Yeah, we intentionally require them to take care of it, to create the downtime activities.
Oh, interesting.
So again, like in their groups and teams, so they'll organize any sports activities, they'll organize any like dance night, karaoke night, whatever they want to do. And they'll also go, as far as downtime, they have the weekends off. So often they'll go out and travel. I mean, our campus is in the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic is smack in the middle of Europe, right?
Yeah.
So they might go to Rome, they might go to Paris, they might go to Hungary. So they do have weekend travel. They probably don't travel every weekend because that, it depends on who they are. Sometimes they have the money to do that. Sometimes they don't. But sometimes they have a lot of coursework they need to get caught up on the weekends, so they'll stay on campus. But, many of them travel to some degree.
And if I remember right, there's certain projects they're constantly working on or developing, right? Whether it's starting a business or, what are these projects they're working on? Yeah.
So the students that choose to be in our business and entrepreneurship program, the entire focus is create a business that's generating revenue before the semester ends. And so that's 3 months. You don't have it. That's not a ton of time to do that. Right. Yeah. So they have a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
they're very, I unless somebody chooses to kind of do the bare minimum, nobody's getting bored.
Yeah. Right. So true. I bet the time just flies by.
It totally flies by.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, what could we, what have you learned or picked up that either young men, young women's presidencies could benefit from, or even YSA wards, or even, I don't know, an elders quorum or relief society that, I love the D4T approach, which is great, but is there maybe more structure or more of a general approach we could take to instill some of these, quote unquote, soft skills? Or,
well, I believe the church really has it right when they made the shift and started having us focus on having the youth and the young adults do more and be more in charge, and the leaders are there more kind of like shadow leaders in the background, supporting rather than doing everything for them. That's the right direction. And so if anybody hasn't gotten on that bandwagon yet, they need to.
Yeah.
Right. Get them involved. Doesn't mean you don't do anything, right? It doesn't mean you just watch and let them crash and burn if they're going to crash and burn. You could still offer guidance. You could still help them and support them. But letting them do as much as possible is great. But then you have this aspect of, okay, if I'm helping them become a leader, I need to be a leader as well. I need to have leadership skills so I know how to coach them or how to help them. Because if you don't know if they're doing a good job or not, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to let them do whatever they're going to do, and they might crash and burn.
Yeah.
And if they crash and burn, that does nothing to help their self-confidence. It does nothing to help them learn how to do it better unless they have somebody there that could say, hey, well, what if you do this? Or could you do that? And, that kind of help or nudge.
Yeah. And then keeps them on track, or or encourages them as well, because sometimes they might feel stuck, right?
Yes. And so that's why I love what you're doing, because you're really encouraging people who are in these leadership roles to work on sharpening that saw,
Yeah.
right? Become better leaders so that you then could pass that on in a better way. And I think that most of the problems in the world are leadership problems.
Yeah. Yeah. As Elder Seal always talks about, there's only one problem in the world, and it's leadership. If you can figure that out, a lot of other problems just fix themselves, you know?
That's right.
It's awesome. Is there anything that comes to mind is like, do you ever recognize a student that maybe just stuck or they're just struggling with the experience in general? And how do you encourage them and get some momentum going?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yes, it definitely does happen. As you know, a lot of young adults these days struggle with anxiety, mental health, those types of things, right? So we have our fair share of students that struggle with those things as well. But I think it's really important to approach learning and growth in a more holistic way, where you're not just focusing, for example, just on leadership itself, but you incorporate the spiritual side of things and the emotional side of things, making sure people are getting real human connections, which is one of the beauties of Cumorah Academy, because human connection is actually an antidote to depression. And I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to be giving any advice or anything.
Yeah.
But what we have found is we're really, really good at creating that human connection between these students and young adults. And we measure emotional resilience before and after with our students. We measure their hopefulness before and after the semester. We measure their self-efficacy before and after. And what we find is that every time there's a dramatic shift from before the semester to after, where, you know, like almost twice as many of our students have high emotional resilience by the time they leave the semester compared to the beginning of the semester. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I attribute it mostly to that human connection and bringing into that the spiritual component.
How do you measure that? Just survey them before and after?
Yeah, so there's peer accepted surveys. We use the adult hope scale. And we also, to measure faith before and after, we use the Santa Clara religious faith scale.
Wow.
So these are recognized within the U.S. Both of those are recognized well within the U.S. The adult hope scale is actually recognized internationally. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that's, to me, what, simple idea of, what if as, you get the change over the new year, the everybody maybe moves up a degree on the path of the youth go on, like to take a moment, just sort of, where are we at right now? And maybe let's revisit this in 6 months to a year and kind of ask these same questions and see if anything's changing and figure out why. I mean, it doesn't all have to happen within the youth experience or the YSA experience, but it could be, maybe something's different in their life that is benefiting, and really just being aware of where they're at and seeing if there's progress there. That can do a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anything else with connection? I mean, I imagine just the nature of like putting people in the same place, like you live together now, like it will naturally stimulate connection. But is there anything else that you do to build that, stimulate that connection?
Yeah, I mean, we do devotionals, and we have the students do most of the devotionals, but there's one devotional every week that we have our staff do. And so we have a curriculum that was given to us. It's a curriculum about divine love, charity, really. And so that's a thread that goes throughout the semester in all of these devotionals. It's short. It's only 15 minutes once a week, right? But we touch on this topic, and the objective is to help the students by the end, and also in conjunction with their actual personal connections that they have on campus, to be able to feel and recognize God's love, to be able to express unconditional love to others, and to feel that connection with others. So That's one of the focuses that we do. I mean, it's not like we spend a ton of time on it, but it is a thread that goes throughout the entire semester, and it is really important.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. That's great. Any other concept or model that we haven't covered that would be important to mention? Or
I think those are the main ones,
Yeah.
the most important ones. So
love it. And you also have this component where you have like visiting staff or instructors, or how does that work?
yeah, so as part of our leadership program, we have a different couple come each week as visiting mentors. And what they will do is they'll teach our leadership class 3 times that week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, typically. We give them the topic, we give them the curriculum outline, and then they infuse it with their own life experiences and stories and activities and things like that they want to do with the students. But then the real magic happens as these visiting mentors meet one-on-one with each of the students throughout the week. So the students will tell their story, their background, share their vision, their life, their goals, and so forth. And that gives the opportunity for this visiting mentor couple to offer any advice or open their eyes to possibilities or opportunities, point them in the direction of resources, whether it's books or classes or things like that, or sometimes connect them with other individuals that could be beneficial, those kinds of things. So that gives the students these data points from every week that they're gathering from these mentors that enable them to really start moving forward on that path in their life.
Yeah, that's cool. And so if people want to participate in that, is that is that something you're looking for?
Absolutely.
Nice.
We're always looking for great mentors. What we're looking for specifically are people who have a passion for helping young adults, people who are firmly rooted in the gospel, because that's a core component to everything that we do. And we're looking for people who not only have a passion to help young adults, but have a good ability to connect with them.
Yeah.
Because those two don't necessarily go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So we want people that will really be able to connect with those young adults.
That's cool. I'm just thinking of again, always sort of reflecting back on a traditional ward experience or the church leader experience there of who in your ward could you cycle through from time to time just to give them a new face, a new perspective, new stories. It's not a formal calling, but, really leverage the collective genius of that group,
Absolutely.
It can be powerful.
And as much as Cumorah Academy's experience is life transforming for our students, it is also for our visiting mentors.
Yeah.
Time and time again, I'm talking to past visiting mentors and they say something to the effect of, I came there and I thought I was just going to be teaching these kids, helping these young adults. But I walked away blown away and I'm transformed. I'm changed.
Yeah.
Because of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is it goes back to that, the power of the experience, right? I mean, we can read as many books as we want or watch this or that training online but to have an experience like that it's so transformational for everybody. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
And then people, when they're done with Cumorah Academy, a lot of them are looking for jobs and so if people are looking for employees and things, it's a great place to maybe look.
Great way for the students to start expanding their networks beyond just their own small little world of Lima, Peru, if that's where they're from, or, Kyiv, Ukraine, or wherever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
No, this was fun.
This is good.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, for sure. And so where would you send people if they want to learn more about either being a mentor or sending someone or going to the academy?
Yeah, so they could just go to cumorahacademy.org. And if you're interested in going there as a student or have a child who would be interested, there's a whole study section there. If you're interested in, contributing somehow by being a visiting mentor or otherwise, there's a give section. You just click on that and go there.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, there's scholarships available. So don't think that if you don't have finances, that there's still some opportunity there.
Absolutely.
Right? That's awesome. That's awesome. And then maybe I just want to slip in, and we may do another episode in the future about this, but you're also creating an experience called Hype that we've put in our newsletter and want to help you promote as well. We're kind of outside of the promotion season, but it'll come back around.
For sure.
So how do you describe what Hype is?
So Hype is a humanitarian experience for youth, So our target audience is not adults at this point. It's ages 16 to 19. And we take them on these humanitarian expeditions. And we also build that leadership component into it. So it's a little bit more focused, because there are some other humanitarian trips out there.
Yeah.
But we add in that element of leadership development.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And that's why we're so excited to promote it and encourage people to check it out. So, and a lot of these things take, for some families, 9+ months to make sure everything's in line. So, and there's a separate website for that. Is that right?
There is, yes.
Okay. And what's that website?
GoHype.org.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Patrick, as you think back on just this journey you've been on with Cumorah Academy and being a leader and inspiring other leadership, how has being a leader helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
That is an incredibly good question. Probably in the fact that there's no way that I or anybody else involved in this project could have done it on our own.
Yeah.
And so I've been forced to lean on him a lot for inspiration, for guidance, for strength. So I've learned to trust in him a lot more than I have in the past. I thought I trusted him before, but you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And and that comes through this crucible experience. And that's been a great journey for me. Although it was really painful at times, it's like you kind of rack your brain. It's like, okay, what do we do with this problem or that problem? I think one of the key principles of life, at some point I'm going to write a book about the principles of happiness, as I call them.
I bet. Yeah.
I think one of those principles is embrace the pain. Pain's going to come, embrace it. It's going to help you grow.